Welcome to the Science Challenge Lunch. My name is Chen Wang and I am the Science Challenge Chair. I'm so happy to see you coming here today, and I believe you are coming for the competition and also the great opportunity to talk to our judges, not for the pizza. Okay, so the first things first, what is Science Challenge? Science Challenge is an essay competition. It's an essay competition held annually by RCSU, which is Royal College of Science Union, and is the union of the whole Natural Science Department of Imperial. This is our union's logo. And I'm wearing the purple blazer today for a reason, because our union color is purple. I can see our president is laughing happily. So the competition is aiming to encourage people to provoke thoughts, to resolve society problems, and also effectively communicate science. All the Imperial students and also secondary schools around the world are welcome to take part in the competition. During the competition, they can engage with different cultures and also get inspired by innovative ideas. And how does the Science Challenge work? On the 10th of December, it is today, it's our launch, and we will reveal the questions today, so you can pick one of them to answer. In order to encourage more people to take part in the competition, we changed the entry rules a little bit this year. So instead of entering individually like previous years, we now accept groups to take part into the competition. But bear in mind, the prize is for each submissions. So you may need to share your prizes with your teammates if you are working as a team. And the entry is open from today. It will close on the 15th of February at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. I know a lot of you will submit your work on the last day, which is fine, but please don't submit it in the last 5 minutes. Because I know last year there will be a couple of people, they didn't submit their submissions successfully, and unfortunately we can't accept any more submissions after the deadline. And so I would suggest you to submit it probably a couple of hours before the deadline. That would be the safe strategy. And there are several rounds in the marking process. After the candidates are shortlisted, we will send the email to those finalists. And in the email, you will get the details where the final is and when it is. But you won't know what you win until you get to the ceremony. So that's a little bit exciting, and we keep it as a secret. And we will do a live stream in the final. So if you are invited but cannot come to the final, you can also watch the video online. So no one will take away your prize if you are not there. And now you must be curious about what the prizes are. So here you go. For each category, which means each question, we will have a winner and a runner-up from Imperial, and also a winner and a runner-up from schools. The Imperial category winner will have £250, and school category winner will have £100. For runners-up, the prizes are kept as a secret, and again, it will be revealed in the final. And among these category winners, we will select 2 overall winners, one from Imperial and the other from schools. And the Imperial overall winner will have £1,000, and the school category school overall winner will have £500. The person who decides who decides the category, the overall winners, will be our ambassador, Lord Robert Winston. He visits more than 1,500 schools in UK every year, and he has published loads of science books for young generations. He really wants to talk to you and share his thoughts about the science challenge and talk about the theme of this year, but he is too busy and cannot come today, so we made a video for him.
Well, hello, I'm Robert Winston and I'm Professor of Science and Society at Imperial College in London, and we're hosting yet again, for the 12th year, our Science Challenge. And the Science Challenge is really about how you write about and think about science. So let me tell you a little bit about my own career. I started really with the idea, well actually in fact, I started with no clue what I wanted to do when I left school, and although I had a place to go to university to read sciences, I ended up eventually becoming a doctor, and then 4 years after qualification gave up medicine and went into the theatre, and I worked in the theatre as a director. And very interestingly, that experience, I think, made me able to communicate much better, because it taught me to understand how people were thinking, how we could collaborate much better, and of course collaboration is really important in science. However, essay writing, which of course is part of what we do in science, is not really so much about collaboration, it's much more about how we think individually. And eventually, of course, having come back into science, which I did after leaving the theatre, I realized that actually, of course, that mixture of collaboration and individual thought are very important. So now I run a small research group. I have been very much involved with reproductive biology and the development of in vitro fertilization and the genetics of the human embryo. Now, of course, my research is much more about how we communicate, and that's probably why I'm still involved with the Science Challenge program.
And this is how he thinks our theme this year. Our theme is AI and natural sciences, and let's see what he thinks.
I think the theme of artificial intelligence and natural sciences is a particularly interesting theme. Let's suppose that Homo sapiens, our species, first came on the planet about 100,000 years ago. And yet the extraordinary thing is, for those of you who are writing essays, it was 96,000 years before we started to invent writing, even though the genes of the human brain have been virtually unchanged for almost 100,000 years. That's an extraordinary thought. But in the last 4,000 years, the human mind has developed in a way that would be completely unpredictable. In the last 400 years, Shakespeare's written Hamlet, Beethoven produced his remarkable string quartets in the 1820s. People now have rode in cars and aeroplanes and all sorts of artificial transport. Now we have computers landed on the moon, and we can actually create new living things in the laboratory. But one of the greatest and most interesting developments is that of artificial intelligence. How will that affect our society, and how will it affect the next generation and the next generations of humans?
So he is our ambassador. And we invite different world-leading academics every year and to have them as our judges. They are from various backgrounds and have really great achievements in their fields. We are very honored to have them as our judges. And this year, our feature article judge is Dr. Dalal Araja. And she is a lecturer and researcher in Computer Science Department of Imperial. She also works with UK National Criminal Agency and the West Midland Police, where they are studying how to build AI system to help the analysts and officers to reason the offender's behavior. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Dalal Rahaja.
Thanks very much. It's good to see a crowd, here 6 o'clock after a very long day and the beginning of the week. It's a really pleasure to be here. As I said, my background's in computer science. I'm a lecturer there. My research mainly focuses on theory and practice of how we can prove properties about safety of programs and computer programs that use AI. I did my undergrad in computer science in Saudi Arabia, and then I moved here afterwards to do my postgraduate studies. So I did my master's degree and PhD at Imperial. I very much followed an academic career path. So I did a postdoc, and I got a fellowship with the Imperial College Research Fellowship here, and just last year got into the lectureship. From a very young age, I've been very passionate about science, particularly I think the idea of having notions of discovery, the rigor, predictability. I felt with science that combined all of it. But why computer science for me? Computer science was that gateway into the different, for example, natural sciences. You think about it, the heart of it is maths, but at the same time, we can apply, and it is inspired by the different kind of natural science fields. To think about, for example, one project that I did very recently, it was about looking at how we can use computer science methods that we typically use to prove properties about programs that we represent as mathematical models to reason about biological networks. And it was just very much that combination which I think inspired me to focus and concentrate on computer science. Which brings us to the field, or the theme that we have today, which is AI and natural science. If we think about natural science, then we typically think about studying or understanding natural phenomena, whether that's observation through analysis, discovery, and prediction. But we always focus as humans being the drivers behind that. So humans are the people that kind of understand and trying to analyze and interpret what we study in terms of the natural sciences. And what we've seen recently is how AI has become as an alternative driver, whether that's to support humans or whether that is to mimic how humans analyze and study natural sciences. Which very much brings me to thinking about what we look at how AI is nowadays. If we look at discoveries around them, we look at the focus on the media, we can see very much that many of the advances in natural sciences have some element of AI in them. If we look at in terms of predictions of chemical reactions or unfolding of or predicting of protein functions and so forth, we find that it's made huge advancements, and we can kind of trace them back to AI. But at the same time, as we see the advancements, we also hear about risks, and there's a lot of concerns about how the credibility or the credibility, the ethics of AI in use in terms of scientific inquiries. And this really brings me back to what I think is very fundamental generally in studying and applying AI in natural science, or for example in my study when I look at developing AI, is really understanding what the role of AI is, or why people are using it and how they're using it, to think about what humans' role in AI are together, whether that's individually or collectively in their use. But very importantly, as developer of AI technologies, is to really focus on how to communicate both the potentials and the limitations of AI. And in that way, we can really understand what the risks are, and if needed, to mitigate against these risks by understanding the capabilities of AI. And that's really kind of a summary of my background and my interest within AI. I think I'll probably hand it over to Fiction.
Thank you. Thanks. And our essay judge is Lord Christopher Fox. He graduated from Imperial College London with a chemistry degree, and once spent 1 year as president of Imperial Students' Union. And now he's the Liberal Democrat spokesperson in business, energy, and industrial strategy in the House of Lords, and also a member of Lord's Science and Technology Committee. At the moment, he is speaking in the EU debate and leading for the Liberal Democrats, so therefore he couldn't come, and we made the video for him as well.
Hello, it's a great pleasure to be involved in the Royal College of Science Union Science Challenge. My name is Chris Fox, and I'm a life peer and member of the House of Lords Science and Technology Select Committees. But before all of that, back in 1980, I graduated from Imperial College Chemistry, having also been President of the Royal College of Science and Imperial College Unions. Now, my first job was in the petroleum industry. It took me far and wide and into the Middle East, and I used chemistry every day. They even put me in charge of a laboratory at one point. But after 5 years, I made a big shift and became a professional communicator. Now, when you go into communications, you have to learn new skills, but the disciplines of science remain central and remain central to everything I do. That's using evidence to draw your conclusions. It's about logically analysing the data, and it's about using that analysis to deliver clear explanations. So, using that skill set, I worked in nuclear, food and general engineering sectors. My last 3 jobs were on the executive boards of FTSE 100 companies.
And here is how he understands the theme of AI and natural sciences.
So how does natural science relate to artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is already changing the world, but it's got a long, long way to go. And I see at least 2 opportunities for natural scientists. First, artificial intelligence can help you experiment and analyse data. Second, natural science can be used to humanise artificial intelligence. I'll explain. Regarding the first, AI will help you run experiments. It's much easier for machines and machine learning to direct and run repetitive experiments. But secondly, and probably more importantly, artificial intelligence can find patterns in big data sets that humans would find very difficult or would miss. And artificial intelligence tools are already being used to review old pharmaceutical experimental data to look for new conclusions. This will grow. What interests me most about artificial intelligence is the need to humanise AI and to make it useful for people rather than useful for business. And natural scientists, and all of them, but I think bioscientists and physicists perhaps will lead on this, will work alongside those experts in AI to deliver tools and solutions that actually help people's lives, that make people's lives better and more fruitful. Smart speakers are a first very crude example of this, but it will go a lot further. And I think we have to drive in human need and human use in this very much. So, your challenge as natural scientists will be to understand people and their needs as well as the technology.
And now, let me introduce our creative writing judge. He is Proof Armand Leroy. He has written 2 award-winning books. One is Mutants and the other is The Lagoon. Besides, he studied the evolution of pop music with application of machine learning, and he made it into a fantastic documentary on BBC 4. So please join me in welcoming Proof Armand Leroy.
Thank you very much. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a scientist of some sort, I suppose, for as long as I can remember. I was a boy naturalist. I loved birds and collected rocks and shells in particular. And this was in South Africa, where the natural world is sort of just rich and abundant and present. And I suppose by the time I was 11 years old, I knew that I was going to be the greatest snail scientist in the world. I had my entire career mapped out. I was going to write an enormous monograph on the African land snails. Well, it didn't quite pan out that way, as it so happens. I guess I discovered that snail science wasn't really that cutting edge by the time I got to university. It's a pretty slow science. So I switched to flies instead. And that took me through my PhD in California, and then I found, flies were just too complicated, so I switched to worms. And I spent about 20 years studying worms, And it's not just any worm. It was a worm called C. elegans, Cenorhabditis elegans. It's a really famous worm. Thousands of scientists around the world study it. They have a big conference in LA every 2 years. 2,000 worm scientists, and they're all just studying this one worm. Anyway, it's a pretty intense field because this worm only has 958 cells. So that's like 2 scientists per cell, right, in this worm. And it was wonderful, but I don't know, I just felt that it was kind of crowded, right? There's a lot of worm scientists. So, and here's the thing. As an evolutionary biologist, one of its joys, its real joy, is that it gives you an excuse to study anything. And when I say anything, I mean, well, almost everything. So anything that evolves, right? So what doesn't evolve? Stars don't evolve, rocks don't evolve, right? But culture evolves. And I've become fascinated by the idea that there should be a science of culture. And what do I mean by culture? I mean all the stuff that humans make. Like a talk like this. Films, art, poetry, paintings, scientific papers, engineering designs, computer programs. All this stuff is culture. And it evolves, I believe, very much like organisms evolve. Not exactly the same, but it's inherited. When we make something new, we get it from somebody in the past. We take their ideas, we mix them up, we even sometimes add an idea of our own. We try not to plagiarize too obviously. And then we mix it all up and we then throw it out into the world, and our new thing, our paper, our book, our art, it lives or dies much as an organism does. Anyway, this is the idea that motivates me. And here's the thing. If there's a science of organic diversity, of all the different creatures in the world, evolutionary biology, why isn't there a science of culture? Because there isn't. Who studies culture? The humanities study culture, art critics study culture, historians study culture. I think they're doing a rotten job of it. I think they actually do not know what they're doing. And the reason they don't know is because they're not scientists, right? How do we study it? Well, for me, the answer is very simple. The first thing is we need to get lots of culture. And by that I mean is we just need to have it all on our hard drives, digitized. And of course now we do. Any of you have access to 30 million, no, sorry, that's an old number, 50 million songs on Spotify or Apple Music, right? Legally or not, right? And you have access to practically the entire history of film and all the books you could ever possibly want. That is unique. You are the first generation ever to have that. The rest of us have just been scratching along the surface, having to make do with whatever happens to be around at the time, right? But you've got it all. And now that we've got it all, we can study it. How are we going to study all this stuff? We have to read it. We have to see it. We have to do what humans are doing. But we don't have enough humans to listen to 50 million songs. So we need machines. AI. That's what it's about, right? So that's what I've been doing over the last few years, is using AI, well, it's a fancy word, machine learning, right? To try to understand what makes culture, to quantify it, right? To extract it. It's crude, right? But I've done a paper in which I studied 17,000 pop songs, which is the US Hot 100, Billboard charts, 1960 to 2010. And as a result, I assert that I know more about the history of pop than anyone. Anyone. I mean, all those fans out there, all the superannuated pop stars, the rappers, all that stuff, they don't know anything. They're just guessing. But I'm a scientist. I've studied it. I've measured it. I've quantified it. I actually know what's happening. And I think we can do that for everything. And that is what I'm really interested in doing. I want to turn culture into a science. Thanks.
Thank you for a great speech. And now it comes to the most exciting part, to reveal our questions. So for the first feature article category, let's see what Dr. Adel Araja will give us.
Thanks. Feels like they need a kind of drums or something. All right. Yeah, exactly. All right. Okay, so shall we begin? So the question which falls under the feature article is AI nowadays plays an instrumental role in development of natural sciences. These have included predicting chemical reactions, discovering protocols for stem cell differentiation, and most recently predicting 3D shapes of proteins, DeepMind, Google. That was just a few days ago. In the future, could AI replace human scientists, and why? Oh, sorry, I should it's the rest of mine. So, reason why I have chosen this question, as I said, going back to my interest, and I think it's very important that we really do understand whether AI is in fact something that we will focus on, will basically replace AI, replace human or not. We listen in the media, we hear in the media constantly successes in terms of whether AI has beat the best chess player, and we hear about failures, for example, in terms of using AI in US court systems to decide whether criminals should be given bail or not. But really we need to understand basically fundamentally whether AI is there to help humans or something they're going to be used against, and we need to understand that to be able to mitigate it. And therefore I think only us as scientists can really understand what we have as a role in terms of advancing sciences and really how we use this technology for our best use. Thanks. And then I'll hand to Armando for your question.
Sure. Thank you, Tom.
That's all right.
Where's my question?
Yes.
My question is pretty much explains itself in the context of what interests me. So it's how will AIs turn art into science? I've already given you part of the answer. I mean, that was my spiel, right? That's what's going to happen. That's what I'm trying to do. But the truth is that I don't really know how to do it, actually. Or put it this way, I'm just scratching the surface. The kinds of tools that I'm using, the machine learning tools that I'm using, they're crude, right? For instance, there's a thing called topic analysis, which is basically you can give it a topic, it's an algorithm, you give it hundreds of thousands of documents, and it will tell you what those documents are about, right? I've done this for scientific papers, hundreds of thousands of scientific papers, for example. But it doesn't tell you about what the argument is. It just tells you what the topics of those things are, that they're about, that it's a genetics paper or a physics paper or an evolutionary genetics paper. It can tell you even in greater detail than that. But it doesn't give you the argument, right? For that, a human still has to read it. Or to take a novel, I can pump, 100,000 novels, no problem, through a variety of kinds of algorithms. But again, that doesn't really tell me about how they have an emotional reaction upon us, how they work as art, right? I mean, that's a much more difficult thing to do. All right, so some people will say, machines will never do that. You got to be human, right? I think that's wrong. I think that's just mystification. It's just poetry. I think they will. And the question is, how are they going to do that? How are we going to quantify the stuff that makes art? Because if we can do that, then we can make it a science. And then we can get rid of all the art critics and just take them over. Thanks. Here you go.
And now it's time to reveal the essay question. Here's the video.
It's because I'm interested in how artificial intelligence improves people's lives and changes people's lives that I want you to look at that when you do your essay. I want you to imagine how, as natural scientists, you can help direct artificial intelligence to make it an improving force rather than merely a force for profit. So the title of the essay I would like you to think about is 2035 and a Day in the Life. In this, I would like you to envision how AI could help improve the quality of people's lives and suggest how natural science and natural scientists will make this happen. Good luck, and I look forward to reading all of your essays. Thank you.
Okay, after listening to these questions, you may have a rough idea which one to go for, but don't decide now, because this year we have a revolution, and we add a new category, which is called freestyle. The question is proposed by our ambassador, Lord Robert Winston. And here is the question.
So here's the question. Human consciousness is the great unsolved puzzle in biology. So how can we make artificial intelligence? So of course, look, this is not an exam. So how you decide to answer this question, or in what medium you use to answer the question, is entirely up to you. I think what we really want is something which is interesting, exciting, a bit unusual, perhaps a bit funny, whatever you feel is appropriate for this task.
For this kind of category, we accept any format of submission. So it's kind of invoke your creativity, and we can allow any kind of submission, any kind of format that you can think of. So use your creativity and join the competition. It's nearly the end of the launch, and I hope it gave you enough information about the science challenge. And I also, if you have any other questions about the competition or about our judges, you want to ask some more questions, it is the time now.
What's the word limit?
There's it's like 1,050, 1,500. Sorry. Yeah. Any more questions? Yeah, at the back. Sorry? Run over the rules? Yes. Oh, the rules there, we will update it on the website, so you can check it there. Yeah. Any more questions? Yes?
Could you put forward more than one entry? Could you put forward more than one entry, so like more than one?
More than one? Yeah. It's, oh, you mean you want to enter more than one?
Yeah.
No, I'm afraid it's just only, you can choose one of the question and then you answer it. But you can work as a team with the other people and join as a team, but only one entry per year. Any more? Yes?
For the first two questions, what format of submission do you accept?
For the first three, actually, it's all about like writing as an essay or creative. Yeah, it's the similar format. But for the last one, you can do whatever, probably videos and anything. Yes?
How do we submit?
You can go to our website. It's called sciencechallenge.org, and you can create your account and you can submit that. Once you log in, you can see. Yes?
Will the judges be judging only their category or the others as well?
Only.
Their category, like, will for the first.
Yeah. So they will only select the category winner for their own question.
And then for the overall winner?
The overall winner will be selected by our ambassador.
Okay.
Any more? So if you have some more questions, you are welcome to ask us, ask myself, our vice president, our president, and also judges if you want to talk about the questions with them. And when we are having the pizza, so it's the pizza time. Thank you.